This is Camp Hacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
What if the right question at the right moment could change a whole summer? This is Intentional Leadership from Go Camp Pro. Our format for this podcast is inspired by Rachel Martin's Wildcard from NPR. So, Rachel, we appreciate the spark. Here's how we play this podcast interview game. We have three categories of questions. We have memories, we have insights, and beliefs. And each round, I name the category. We roll a 20-sided die to see which from that category randomly, which question we ask. And then we go on and we ask our guest to answer that question. I'm Travis Allison. Today's guest is Matt Kaufman from Camp Ramaquois, who also has a really interesting project that we are going to be discussing in between the memories and beliefs section. So welcome, Matt. I'm grateful to have you here. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you today.
Yeah, me too. Matt and I were talking earlier, and Matt is one of my favorite deep camp nerds. And I love how thoughtful and intentional he is about stuff that other people find really intimidating about this job. So I'm grateful to have a chance to ask you some questions today, Matt.
Sure, and I take camp nerd as a compliment. I want everyone to know that's my ultimate goal in life, is to be a giant camp nerd.
Perfect. Me too. I'm totally there. So in Intentional Leadership, these conversations are with the innovators and the culture builders of the camp world. So we're going to ask these questions. We're going to do the roll. The rules are pretty simple. Matt answers 3 questions from each of those 3 categories. We do a little mini interview between category 1 and category 2. And Matt has 2 tools at his disposal. One is a skip. So if that's the case, then we'll just re-roll and pick another number. Or a flip, in which Matt can ask me to answer the question first, and then he still has to answer that question. So I think we're ready to go, Matt. I'm going to get the tool up on screen. We, because of our nerdism, are using a 20-sided dice, which to nerds is known as a D20. I did ask Matt if he had his own D20 with him, but he said he left it in other pants. So here we go, Matt. First roll. Question number 5. So question number 5 is, what is a feeling from your childhood that you think you've been chasing your whole life, man?
Oh, a feeling I've been chasing. That's a good question. So I started at Camp Ramaquois when I was 4 years old as a camper.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to go through the entire program and then become a counselor and an administrator and now a director. And at one point, I think if you're a camp person, you've been at camp for a long time, you know this feeling of being a counselor for so long that you're just really, really good at it. So I was a counselor with boys entering first grade for 7 years, and I just remember the last 2 or 3 years just having such a high level of confidence in my abilities, and I knew how to do that job so well. And I don't think I've ever been as confident about anything since those days. So I don't know if it was true confidence in terms of being worthy of that level of confidence, but I felt so good about what I was doing. And I think I've been chasing that level of competence my whole life. So.
That's great. It's such a fun group to be responsible, just that age group and those kids that age. That's great.
Yeah, that was definitely the highlight of my career, being a counselor for that age.
That's right. That's awesome. Okay. Question number 2. Question number 10. What was a disappointing experience for you that now feels like it was a blessing or a bonus that you went through it?
Oh, that is a great question. So, it's interesting. I didn't go to school to be a camp professional. I don't know that many people did, but my background is engineering. And when I graduated college, my senior year of college. Was very fortunate that it was sort of the height of the IT technological revolution. And People like me with engineering degrees, we were literally being wined and dined by recruiters who came to campus to try to hire us. And a whole bunch of my friends and I were offered a position at a company, and we all decided to go together to this
Yeah,
company, and it was a great opportunity. And everything was set up, and we were looking forward to it. And 9/11 happened,
right.
and very long story short, all of our offers were rescinded, and the
Yeah,
economy really, for those of us of a certain age, remember the economy took a
yeah,
tumble, and I was unable to find another job at that time. So I wound up going back to school, getting a master's degree. And it was such a hard thing to go through for me. It was probably the first time that I really faced adversity in my life.
yeah,
And going through that process, I think I was lucky that I was able to spend two additional summers at camp because of that. And that changed my focus, and I decided that I wanted to do what I loved doing rather than what maybe people thought I was supposed to be doing, which
yeah,
was going back into the technology field and consulting and something along those lines. And so that I mean, it was a terrible tragedy, obviously,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it changed the course of my life. And in the short term, it was hard to go through, but in the long term, it allowed me to do what I'm doing now, which I don't really consider a job. I consider it my calling and something that I love to
yeah,
do.
yeah. That's amazing. What's your master's in?
My undergrad and master's
Both
degrees are
engineering.
in something called operations research and industrial engineering,
Yeah,
which is a long way of saying fancy math. And I'm pretty sure that whatever I learned in those 5 years is now completely done by AI. So,
I could see that. I could see that. But it says a lot about the way that your brain works. And I think that sort of systems thinking and also the research and mathy side of that, I can see how that makes a difference to Ramaquois from the stuff that you folks are doing and previous discussions you and I have had about how how thoughtful you are about looking at the numbers and the metrics of what's going on at camp and making decisions based on that.
yeah, I think my background in school really taught me two things. One was time management. Intentionally in engineering school, they intentionally try to make it really difficult for you at times, and the
Yep.
professors are notorious for coordinating assignments so that everything's due the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and so you have to figure out how to use your time wisely, which is very important when we're so busy in the summer and the spring. And the other thing that my major in particular taught me was it's really just fact-based decision making.
Yeah.
So being able to look at a problem and separate facts from opinions and feelings from facts is very helpful. So what we do a lot is we do look at numbers, and then we look at what we know, what we see with our own eyes, and when those two things match, we have a pretty good sense that we need to make some changes here.
Right. Yeah. It's really encouraging for me to see, but I'm sure surprising to others to see how thoughtful you folks are about making plans and measuring things and being really specific about it. I think it's great to see. Yeah.
We try our hardest,
Yep.
yeah.
And I think you share it really well too, which is also nice that Ramaquois open about the cool stuff that they're doing and how they're doing it. As an engineering aside, I think this is maybe just a Canadian tradition, but when you get your engineering degree, do you get the iron ring? Do you have the iron ring tradition? Do
I
you know what I mean?
no, no,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so in Canada, when you graduate from engineering, you're given an iron ring. It's usually pinky sized, but all engineers who get this iron ring. It used to be at some point you had to craft your own iron ring. I'm sure it's not that now. But that tradition came from engineer designed a bridge and the bridge failed. And so he took iron from that bridge. And I'm kind of getting this a bit wrong, of course, but iron from that bridge and made a ring just to constantly remind him of the responsibilities of being an engineer.
Mhm.
And then now it's a tradition across Canada. When you graduate with your first degree in engineering, you get an iron ring.
That's great. You know me, I'm a big fan of traditions and rituals, so I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. Like it's such a cool thing to think about how we can make the lessons and to extrapolate this obviously to the camp world because I think that's stuff you and I do quite naturally. Like, oh, this would work for camp. Like just to find those things that are symbols of what we are and symbols that we can recognize in each other and just good ways to say we're a part of a community that is super thoughtful about the way we do things.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what we do. That's what we do.
it is.
Yeah.
It is this. Okay, third question from the memories category. Question 11. Oh, when did a junior staff member, someone who was younger than you or lower on the organizational chart, teach you something that you didn't expect?
Hmm. That happens every day. Yeah, I'm in the fortunate position of being able to learn a lot of lessons from people that are younger than me.
Mm,
What one person comes to mind specifically, and it was when I was a counselor. I was what we call a group leader, which is the eldest counselor in the group, and I was working with a younger counselor. Her name was Nicole, and I wound up working with her in the same division for about 3 or 4 years. In the last 2 years, I had been promoted to division leader, so I was her supervisor, and she was brilliant. I mean, she wound up going to Johns Hopkins and doing all sorts of wonderful things with her life. But when she first came in, she just was like a sponge, and she was learning from all of us, from all of the older counselors, as she got older, she then became the leader of the counselor crew. She was the one everyone looked to for support and guidance. And when she left, when she graduated from college and she was no longer working at camp, she wound up doing Teach for America.
mm,
And then she wound up going to some charter schools. And she she took everything she learned at camp and she implemented it at her schools. And she wound up becoming a principal. And her schools, she's been at several schools at this point,
yeah,
but she basically took so much about what she learned at camp and turned her schools into summer camps that taught academics. And she's been extraordinarily successful. And I think what I learned from her is that what we do at camp is real, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
not just this little thing that lives on its own island in the summer that kids come to and have a good time and then they leave it behind. People take this with them into their lives, into their careers, into their own little worlds. And that was a powerful lesson for me to learn. And I'm
yeah,
to this day just so proud of her. I think she's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. This is part of why I try to convince camp people not to refer to camp as magic. Like, I think we can talk to each other about it that way, but to never let that go outside of camp people to camp people conversations because it makes it just this thing that's so amorphous. And as soon as people hear us say camp magic, they just start to write us off because you can't possibly be serious. We all know that we're serious, but it's just a language thing. So when you convert it into real world benefits, you start to see and you have a new language for talking about how camp benefits you and the people around you.
Exactly. Exactly. Nothing we do is accidental,
Yeah,
right? Everything we do has a lot of thought behind it, a lot
yeah,
of science behind it. So yeah, that was just a great thing for me to see how it works, right? It doesn't just work
yeah,
in camp, it works everywhere.
totally, absolutely right. So Matt, I wanted to talk to you because I think you're really smart and I respect the stuff that you have done in the industry. I really liked your Camp MBA book that you put out a number of years ago, but you're back because you are working on a new book. Tell me a bit about it.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, the Summer Camp MBA was my first book. It came out in 2019, and it was essentially how staff can learn lessons from camp and apply them to the real world. So I always say that camp is the best first job you can have, and that book enumerated some of those lessons that you could take with you to the real world. This new book is different. It's very different. It's much more in depth about some of the things we were just talking about how
Yeah,
camp is not magic. What we do at camp is grounded in science, And what the book aims to do is combine stories and brain science to explain that what we do at camp is really the ideal situation to have children and adults learn and grow and be happy and be productive and be the most human versions of themselves. So we talk a lot about the certain chemicals that are in the brain, five chemicals in
Mm,
particular, and all the little silly traditions and rituals and customs that we have at camp and the relationships that are built at camp and how each of those is really tied to a chemical that makes us feel like we belong and
yeah,
creates an environment that allows us to learn and grow and thrive.
yeah, that's really great. So the whole idea makes sense to me, of course. What's the mechanism that you're going to turn that into a book? Like, how are you going to structure it to make that make sense?
Right. So the Campfire Effect is the name of the book,
Mm,
and what I've done, I really started thinking about this probably close to 5 years ago at this point, and
yeah,
I've been in my head collecting stories that I have, stories that other people share with
yeah,
me. A lot of them are very familiar to camp people because I think they happen in different ways, probably multiple times every day at every camp. So I took all these stories and I kind of in my head created this imaginary camp where there are these characters and they go through their summer and they have their struggles and they have their moments of victory. And as we share these stories, we tie it back into the chemicals in the brain and what's happening
mm,
in that child's brain or that staff member's brain as that event is happening. And then what we try to do in the book is take that framework and say, hey, even if you don't run a camp, maybe you run a school or a business or just you have a family, these are some ways that you can take these ideas and these concepts and make your organization a little bit more like camp so you can have
yeah,
the same levels of success that we have at camp. So that's how we try to do it. I
yeah.
intentionally didn't want to make the science too overwhelming,
Hmm.
but I thought it was important to tie those stories and the science together.
Yeah, yeah. That's such a great skill, and I think it's one that all the best camp leaders have, and that others could develop. Not the application to science, that's very good, but just the act of collecting stories and either filing them away, writing them down, doing a voice note, whatever it is such a that is such a sign to me that you are a true camp professional. Is you're thinking at some point this story is going to matter more than just this little moment, and just capturing those stories. So I just keep a file, just a text file of even just a prompt or two of how to remember the story. But I use those stories all of the time, all the
Right.
time.
Right. Stories are the best way to capture culture. You know, if you think
Yeah,
about human evolution,
yeah,
for
bam.
however long humans have been around, most of that time history is passed down through oral tradition, through stories.
Yeah,
So we have an administrators meeting here once a month leading up to the summer with our 30 or 40 top leaders here. And we always make it a point to share stories with what makes camp special, our victories. We share those intentionally.
yeah.
It seems like it can, if you're watching from the outside, it seems like time that's wasted, but it's not. It's the most important time we spend.
Right. Right. Well, I'm excited to read it, Matt. I think the last one was great, and I'm inspired by the stuff that you're talking about today. If people want to follow up or get on an early notice of when the book comes out, where can they do that?
Sure, yeah. So I have a website. It's called ilove.camp, www.ilove.camp, because I love camp.
Hmm.
And if you go to that website, you could sign up, put your email address in, and you'll be the first to know when the book is out. You can probably get an advanced copy. And the timing for release is still a bit of a surprise. So put your email in and you'll know first.
Right. Right. That's great. Okay. Well, let's get back to the interview then, Matt. This time we're going to the insights category. Number 20. All right. Who was a peer when you were growing up that you modeled your behavior after, good or bad?
Oh, there's so many of them. So when I was, all of my stories are camp stories.
Yeah, good. Well, awesome.
So I worked with the boys entering first grade, and we we had a group of, I think it was 5 or 6 of us that all started together when we were about the same age, and we all did the extended counselor thing, right? Not like
Yeah.
we stayed a year or two longer than we all should have. And this group of 5 people that I still know and love and am friends with today, we used to just push each other to be the best in
Yeah.
sort of the most fun and outrageous
Yeah.
ways.
That's amazing.
So, so things that you could only do at camp. So we would,
Uh-huh.
we would get our kids to to learn these rules that were super important, but we would do it in the most fun ways possible. So we had this rule. We look out for each other, right?
Yeah.
So it was just different ways we could implement that rule in all sorts of different environments. So I would say this group of 5 people just really pushed me, and we used to do things like we had a certain hat that we called the crocodile hunter hat,
Yeah.
and we would give that out to the child that anytime a child did something wonderful, and
Yeah.
we had a whole ceremony for passing the crocodile hunter hat from one
Uh-huh.
camper to another. So if a
Amazing.
camper threw out their garbage, we stopped everything and we did like a 5-minute ceremony of passing the hat from one kid to another, and it was just utterly ridiculous
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
but so campy, and the kids loved it, and the kids became so well behaved. So it's not one person, but it's kind of like my cohort that
Like
that we went
group. Yeah.
through this experience together. That some of the best times in my life.
Right. Well, that answer certainly reinforces the idea that the traditions and the rituals that we make around camp have a huge impact on how camp works for us and what we can share with kids. Okay, next question. 14. In your camp work, where does the technology that you employ genuinely buy time back from you? Like, where does it create new space for you to do more stuff and be more intentionally?
So I would say I think about this in two different ways. There's efficiency and there's opportunity.
Mm,
So with efficiency, for instance, we did something this past spring with camper intake forms. We call them personality profiles, but these are the forms that you get from
yeah,
parents where they fill out information about their child. And we were able to create a workflow that uses artificial intelligence to summarize these. And there's still a human in the loop, but
yep,
instead of the human taking 4 or 5 minutes to review each one, they're taking 1 or 2 minutes. So that 2 or 3 minute savings really adds up. So things like that I refer to as efficiency AI.
yeah,
And then there's more opportunity, which is a lot, I think, of what I do, which
mm, mm,
because of the technology, we're able to do more and we're able to get more information. So I have a coding background as I think you know, but I've been
yeah,
able to build in retention information. So we segment retention by every which way you can imagine. And on a daily basis, I'm looking at those numbers for red flags, for things that maybe didn't go right last summer, and I have in my head where I think we can improve, and I look at those retention numbers, and when they line up, that's when we can take some action. So to me, that's more of an opportunity
yeah,
rather than efficiency. So that's not actually saving us time, but it's making our camp better. And you start doing those things year after year after year, and it really adds up, and it makes the camp much better when you look at it over a 5 or 10 or 20 year time span. So that's kind of the way that I think of the technology that I bring to the table as some of the things. Yeah, it saves me some time, but I
yeah,
think the bigger part of it is what it allows us to do and the better decisions that it allows us to make.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's so in line with one of my big projects for this year has been this resilient camp blueprint, and that is the theme. Like, how can we give you space to be more intentional, to be more thoughtful, and we'll use whatever it is, AI, any tools, systems, anything to give you the mental room to just think bigger.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's what it's about. It's about finding ways to improve yourself and improve your organization, and you have to be open to new tools and new ideas in order to do that. You have to make yourself better in order to make
yeah,
your camp better.
Right. Yeah. That's really great. Also, thinking about the AI that you used this spring to condense those into usable chunks, how different that's going to be next spring, just the pace of development with AI and how much more insight you're going to be able to hand over to your staff
Right.
with as the tools change.
Right. We were using, I think, Gemini 1.5 to do those summaries, and I think by next spring we'll be on Gemini 3.
Yeah, at least.
And I've just been th I was actually thinking about this morning before I came on here is
Yeah.
maybe instead of just summarizing it, maybe AI can give some practical advice to the counselors, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have a child and you know that that child has ADHD and you have some information about them from last year, maybe
Yeah.
the AI can say, hey, on the first day, you might want to try introducing yourself this way, or you might want to
Yeah.
try reminding them about transitions because it's a change from
Yep.
this timing of school and things. So there's an unlimited amount of opportunity here for us
I agree.
to provide a better service to the children.
Yeah, I agree. Wonderful. Okay, third question from Insights. That is six. How do you stay connected or reconnect to people from your past that you've lost?
Well, I'm going to use my lifeline on this one and turn that around to you because I think you're probably much better at that than I am.
Cool. Cool. So flip back to me. Yeah, I think so when I know that my personality and my kind of ADHD is that I will sort of have an intense relationship with people, and I can get to that pretty quickly, like over a couple of days, and then sort of just go on to the next thing in my life. And I suspect that that is like people appreciate a new relationship and are excited about it, but my brain has just shifted. So I make notes. It was like I have a reminder set. It's like connect. Here's 20 people that are on the periphery of my life that I care about a lot that I don't connect with enough. And it's like, all right, who this week am I just going to send a thank you to, or just a text, how are things going, that kind of stuff. And that way, I hope that my circle just keeps getting a little bigger.
That's great. I need to do a better job at that. I took a 12-year hiatus from social media,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I feel like that had a lot of benefits for my mental health,
of course.
but it also maybe allowed me to let some relationships slip by the wayside that I value that I haven't had an opportunity to nurture. So I
Right.
think I think I'm going to take your advice and try to do a little bit of a better job with that.
Well, and to be fair, Matt, I rarely use social media for this. In fact, my social media use is way down. Certainly, the thinking about, oh, I should post something that hardly exists anymore. I definitely do it on LinkedIn, but that's all super business focused and sharing as much good ideas with the people I want to help. But it's just a text list in my Obsidian, and I just text people usually. Sometimes I give them a call, but often it's hey, what's going on in your life, or how are your kids, or what's a fun trip you've been on lately? Those kind of things, all by text.
All right. That's great.
It
I love
doesn't
it.
have to be social media, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, we'll move on to the belief section. And so you've done a flip, so you've got a skip left if you need it.
Okay.
All right, here we go with the roll. Number three. Matt, do you think people can really change?
Oh, I think I think people can change. I think it's really hard to change,
Hmm.
but I think you can do it if you're I think it's about habits and you have to understand how your habits work if you really want to change. So I just for myself, I used to eat whatever I wanted to eat
Hmm.
because I
Yeah.
was I've been blessed for most of my life with a pretty fast metabolism, and there were really no consequences for eating whatever I wanted to eat. However, I got a blood test back and my cholesterol was high,
Mm.
and that really scared me. So I changed my habits. I read Atomic Habits
Yeah.
by
Duhigg.
James Clear,
Oh,
and
clear. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and
Apologies.
yeah, or is that Charles Duhigg? I'm not sure. I might be getting that wrong.
I'm
I read
looking in
some
the Duhigg section of my bookshelf, and my that's not the one I can see. Anyway,
um,
Atomic
yeah,
Habits. My
yeah,
apologies for
I read Atomic
jumping in.
Habits,
Yeah.
and I realized that you have to replace a bad habit with a good habit, and I
Mm,
was able to change my eating habits, and I was really proud of myself for that. It wasn't easy, but
yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
So, I think people can change. I think you could change the way you speak to other people.
Hmm.
I think you can change the way you manage your time, but it's about identifying what your current habits are and figuring out a new one to replace the ineffective one or the negative one. And the other thing that I'll say is I it's not just that people can change if they want to, but I think people change over time just because of
Yeah.
experiences and
Yeah.
growing up. And something that I noticed about myself is that I used to I still do. I can have a temper at times, and
Hmm. Hmm.
99.9% of the time I'm very soft spoken and kind. But every once in a while, if I'm pushed over the edge, I
Yeah.
snap. And I've noticed that as I've gotten older, I do that less often. And part of that is an effort on my part, but I think part of it is just having a different perspective in life. So I think that we all change as we get older and as we learn and grow, but changing on purpose, if you actually want to change,
Hmm.
is a hard thing to do, but you can do it if you're intentional about it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something that we made a point of saying to our seasonal staff every year. Like, you do not assume you know this kid from what they did last year. Don't, there will be things the same, but things can radically change in a kid from year to year. We especially would see that in teens. And I also love that camp is a place that people get to try on new personalities and try out being new things in the safety of a bunch of supportive adults. Like, okay, that's who we are today. And yeah, just reminding folks that people can change and kids change a lot.
Kids certainly change a lot from year to year. You forget how big of a percentage one year is in their life.
Yes.
So when they go from six
Yes.
to seven, it's
Hmm.
17% of their life, additional.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's brilliant. Thank you. That's a great answer. Okay. Number two, 16. In your life as a camp leader, what trade-offs are you willing to make on compensation, etc., to protect your own rest, your own learning, your own safety?
Hmm. I, I I think my answer is probably that I've never thought about that,
Sure.
which might be the that might be the answer, right? Like
Yeah, totally.
there's very little that I won't sacrifice for this job.
Yeah.
And that might not be the healthiest answer.
Yeah.
I won't sacrifice my ethics for
Hmm.
sure. And I always try to put my family first. But I think what I've been the mantra that I've had for the past few years is that when I'm at camp, it has my 100%, and when I'm not at camp, my family has my 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the sacrifices I think are made around the edges of that with things like being social or having hobbies. I would love to have a hobby like playing golf or something like that, but I don't,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
my family and the camp come first. I sacrifice sleep. So
Sure.
as I'm speaking, I'm like, man, how sad is this, right? Like, but for the past 20 years, I've been full time at camp, and for better or for worse, there's very little that I wouldn't do to make this place as great as possible. It's who I am. It's what I believe, and it's what I do.
Right. Uh, Last question, Matt. 15. When something goes wrong at camp, what is your duty as a director to have candor when dealing with that situation?
Hmm. I still have my skip, right?
You do? You totally do.
I'm not going to use it on this one. I think this is an important question. So it's a tough question, but it's an important one. You know, we I'm part of a team of directors here with Jared Gelb and Phil Raynone, and the three of us run Ramaquois. And this was something that we really struggled with when it was COVID. So we did not open in 2020. And a lot of our nearby day camps did open, and we
Yeah.
chose not to open.
Yeah.
And one thing that we decided, I think in April of that spring, that the run up to that season, as I'm sure you remember, was just crazy and so difficult. And we made a promise to our families via email that we would be transparent with them. We would be open and transparent with them. And we were allowed to open. The local entities said we were allowed to open, and we shared with them that we were not going to open because we could not promise them that it would be safe. And we were transparent. We said we can't promise it's going to be safe for your children, some of whom are very young, and we can't promise that it's going to be safe for our staff, some of whom have underlying health conditions and some of
Mhm.
whom are in perfectly good health, but we don't know what might happen. And we were honest about that, and there were definitely people that were disappointed about it, but we made that decision and we continued that trend of being open and honest with our families and as transparent as possible about everything that we knew, certainly through COVID. And I think we continue that up until now. The year or two after COVID, summers 21 and 22, we still had contact tracing, and we were completely upfront with any cases of
Yeah.
COVID that we had and what that meant with quarantining and things like that. And that it was a tough time, but I think in the long run, being transparent and
Yeah.
honest will win you more times than you lose. I understand in the short run, keeping things hidden or keeping things, to yourself is a
Yeah.
little bit easier. But I think that what we do, taking care of other people's children, is about trust, and people have to trust you. And if you don't have
Yeah.
that, it's difficult to run a good camp.
Right.
That's a good question. That was a really good one. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Well, and thank you. That is a great answer. That is such a perfect place. If you don't have trust, you can't run camp. It's such a perfect place to bring this to a close. Matt, I thank you so much. I appreciate your candor today and your thoughtfulness. I have so much respect for what you do. I don't know you very well, but I hear so many great stories of your personal work and the stuff that Ramaquois does that I feel like I know you probably better than I do. But I am grateful that you're the kind of camp pro that shares and is so open. So I'm
Right
grateful
back
for
at
that.
you. I appreciate everything you do, and I thank you so much for having me on today.
You're very welcome. Matt, we end this with a nomination. Who is a thoughtful or intentional camp leader or camp director that you would nominate to have this interview be on the intentionally intentional leader?
Ooh, good one. I would nominate, oh, there's so many people. I'm gonna go with Heath Levine from Shibley Day Camp in Long Island. He's been doing kind of under the radar. He's been doing a lot of really interesting work in terms of recruiting campers and taking a camp just from being a really good camp to being one of the best camps now. So
Yeah.
throw his name in the ring.
That's great. That's great. Well, I really appreciate that. So, folks, if you are got some great insights from Matt and looking forward to his project, you can go to ilove.camp and register to be notified when the book comes out. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Thanks. Good to be here. I'll talk to you soon, Travis.
Take care.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.